All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. Ito na live back from Manila. Medyo jet lag pa rin tayo, but I hope I'm going to be as coherent as possible. We're joined again, of course, with former Associate Justice Antony Carpio. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, Richard, for having me, and good evening to our viewers.
Thank you so much, Justice. Again, wow. We were just talking about this last time. I was joining you from Ibiza. POGO ban. And I never thought I would see this in my lifetime that Riza Hontiveros is giving a standing ovation with Marcos Jr. Nevertheless there at the podium or something like that. Obviously we talked about this. So Justice, did you also give a standing ovation wherever you were to President Marcos Jr.?
Well, I think it was really a no-brainer. The President Marcos Jr. had no option but to ban the POGOs because, first of all, it's really illegal. I mean, uh, it's just a cover to the license, POGO license or internet gaming license, is just a cover so that these Chinese criminal syndicates can conduct illegal activities here, like internet scamming, phishing, uh, sex trafficking, human trafficking, and all sorts of criminal activities. They fake their birth certificates. I mean, uh, they made the Philippines the playground of all their illegal activities, using the POGO license as a cover because they can legally set up a business with that POGO license. So, but we all know, I mean, because China bans POGO, so how can they say that their market is China? It's really contradictory. It's a no-brainer to say that they're using it as a cover. And even for, let's say, Malaysia, which allows gaming, uh, Malaysia will not be happy if they operate in the Philippines. They don't get taxed by Malaysia, but their clients are in Malaysia. I mean, Malaysia would require them to register in Malaysia and to pay taxes in Malaysia, and there would be no sense for them to open an office here anymore. So actually, they're opening an office here so that they're free from any liability in Malaysia, criminal or tax or otherwise, but they get their clients from Malaysia. But that is really just also a cover. I mean, maybe they're doing that there. That's not their real business. Their real business is internet scamming. They're tapping into the bank accounts of customers of banks.
The real business
That's
is
the
dirty
real
business.
business.
The real business is dirty business. Justice, obviously, I mean, of course, we welcome that announcement. And after our interview last week, I was very encouraged that is the direction we're going in. And I saw a lot of optimism, almost certainly on your side that this is going to happen. This is an announcement is going to happen. It was the highlight of his son. And next to the West Philippine Sea announcement, which we'll also discuss shortly, wala pang 12 hours, bigla may mga authorities dyan na asking for exemptions for 7 or 10 or 11. Like, the ink didn't even dry. And
Well,
you already
initially,
have maneuverings happening. Dinidribble na.
the people at PAGCOR who obviously know everything what's happening wanted to continue some of these POGO operations, but I think the president was clear, all. And so they have to really cancel all the licenses that they issued because it's really a scam. I mean, it's giving us a black eye. Everybody knows that the PAGCOR license is just a cover for illegal activities, and they should be ashamed. The people in PAGCOR should be ashamed to allow this to continue.
Well, now, in fairness to President Marcos Jr., I think he very much sensed that his vulnerability is really on economic issues. We saw negative 70+% net approval on inflation, not so good on employment generation, although slightly better than other economic issues. He said that isa sa concern niya is to make sure yung mga maapektuhan ng mga trabahador na Pilipino Not many, but more or less he made sure na they won't be affected as bad, that there won't be a major dislocation. We know that the contribution is like 0.0001% of the GDP, but nevertheless, of course, Justice, we also know that there's certain areas, especially in CBD, no? Marami nagpaparenta sa mga pogo-pogo na yan. What should we do in terms of making sure that the economic fallout is not that stark? Or you think this economic fallout won't be stark anyway because it's just so limited and they never pay taxes anyway? And
Well,
or like, so what if there's an economic fallout and this is damn illegal? Just stop the whole thing.
well, first of all, the POGOs have mostly left already. I mean, there was a during the pandemic they left, and that's one. Second, whether they make billions for us or trillions, I mean, we should have to stop that because it's illegal. I mean, unless if you really want to make money out of illegal items, let's just allow everybody to plant opium. I mean, if that's your
It's a
justification
slippery
for
slope.
saying even if there are illegalities there, their operations are illegal because they're earning, how much are they saying? Uh, 20 billion a year? Well, if that is your uh, standard, let's just allow opium to be grown here. It will be 1,000 times that. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, that's not what economists uh, think as a development.
Right. I mean, I think someone said, I mean, why not just legalize everything? Prostitution, trafficking. Para, I mean, may kabuhayan, di ba? I mean, so it's really ridiculous the economic reason that they have been using. Um, Justice, what are you expecting in terms of the smooth implementation of this in a sense that, I mean, if the syndicates are involved in all of that, hindi ba may risk na they will go lie low for now and then babalik na naman sila later on if they feel the scrutiny and the media heat and all of that is gone? Or you think that we have crossed the Rubicon in a good way this time?
Well, I think they will die out because unless you have the support of Malacanang, which they had during the time of Duterte, it will not prosper. It will die down because Malacanang will be, first of all, putting the brakes in immigration, in the PAGCOR, and in the local governments. It will be difficult for them. They will be raided and raided and raided, and they will run out of money just paying these raiding teams. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's a kind of a cat and mouse game that is not worth. I mean, these are international syndicates, right? I'm sure they're gonna find some banana republic to relocate to anytime. Online lang
Yeah.
naman, di ba? Yes, I don't think that it's worth for them to stick around too much.
Yeah, they should go to the Pacific Island states and take over one Pacific Island state.
I'm sure mataas din ang standards ng Pacific Islands unless they have a digong-like dictator down there with those beautiful paradise islands they got. Now, just this, obviously the other highlight of the, and I think everyone expected this, was the very strong and uncompromising stance that President Marcos Jr. took on the West Philippine Sea issue. And I'm sure isa sa paboritong columnist ni Ronald Llamas na taga Manila Times ay nagsasabi na figment of imagination lang yung sinasabi natin ng mga karapatan natin sa West Philippine Sea. I mean, not worth, to quote you, not worth mentioning ang pangalan ng taong to. But I think everyone knows who I'm referring to. Just what did you think about the West Philippine Sea side of the discussion? Do you think this is really the shining moment for Marcos Jr. so far?
Yes, I think he's going to leave a legacy, and his legacy will be the West Philippine Sea. The father, we have to thank Marcos Sr. for claiming the Spratlys and putting troops there and occupying 9 high tide islands. And so I think he sees that as his legacy of his father. So he wants to continue that, and he wants to assert the arbitral award, and he's getting the support of the U.S. and all like-minded states, and that's a lot. Those are very strong states, not supporting the Philippines. So that I think will be his legacy if he continues this way. We had a hard time negotiating with China how to resupply Sierra Madre. But the negotiations bore fruit because uh, from my sources, we were able to resupply Sierra Madre without giving prior notice to China, without being inspected on site, the boats, and without getting their consent. So we did it our way, and China had to give in to us. Although, of course, for propaganda's sake, they're saying that we asked for their permission. But I would tend to believe our own people because I check and recheck, no. And they did not really ask for permission, and they will not ask permission. So I think
Mm.
that's our patience, our persistence in following the rule of law has paid off.
That we have established a new equilibrium essentially.
Yes,
By our red lines are now clear to China.
yeah. So this will continue, and I think the Chinese uh, agreed to that because they were losing face before the world. I mean, the publicity against them was terrible. I mean, and that will only galvanize the rest of ASEAN against them if they continue that way.
um
So the basic, the fundamentals here is this: China is asking ASEAN to throw out the U.S. and the allies of the U.S. in the South China Sea, out of the South China Sea. But no country will do that because what will happen is China will take over and encroach on their maritime zone. So China will never be a true friend of Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia as long as China does not give up on its 10-line claim. I mean, that's the bottom line. China will never be a true friend of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia for as long as China will cling on to this ridiculous claim that they own almost the entire South China Sea. I mean,
yeah.
nobody will consider themselves a friend of China on that ground alone.
Well, unless if you're a Duterte or something, which we'll discuss very shortly,
Well, there
Justice
will be
Carp.
outliers like Duterte for one
Exactly.
reason or another.
Before talking about Sara Duterte, papunta na tayo sa Germany. I'm sorry, papunta tayo sa Davao soon. Let's talk about this, Justice. For me, ang laki ng potential to make the upcoming elections really West Philippine Sea focus. Of course, not number one issue, maybe not number two issue, but maybe number three issue, right? Kahit pa paano top three. My contention was, and interesting, I just made this intervention before flying out the other day in the Baha and all. There's a whole piece apparently made on South China Morning Post about this, where I said, to make West Philippine Sea issue an election issue, you have to nest it in a bigger set of package of issues. Meaning, idikit mo yan sa food security, idikit mo yan sa yung karapatan na ating mga ingista, idikit mo yan sa national dignity, crime, treason, yung mga ganito. Then make it look that this election, which I think it is you may have three oppositions, meaning Makabayan bloc, genuine opposition bloc, and then, well, the Makapili bloc. But I think fundamentally the upcoming elections will be about Team Philippines versus Team China, right? Because there are going to be people running next year who clearly do not have the national interest in mind. They have their own personal or whatever interest in mind. How important it is, Justice, for Marcos Jr. to properly package this? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, Justice Carpio, is, again, this is weird to say, no? Masyadong mabait si BBM in a sense that he's not juxtaposing himself against Duterte enough. So for instance, if you look at the earlier in the SONA, diba, he mentioned like, hindi na kasing marahas yung kanyang war on drugs, na walang namamatay. So, kulang na sabihin niya, hindi katulad ni Digong na pumatay. Diba? Like parang, he's not making that little jump eh. I mean, again, you don't have to openly name Duterte, but I think medyo medyo nakakapos ako eh. Medyo kailangan niya i-shift gear ng konti. And I felt, especially in West Philippine Sea, where some would say almost treasonous yung posture ng previous president, I just feel Marcos should be a little bit more, well, Marcos on this issue. What do you think about Justice?
Well, it's logical to link the two because the West Philippine Sea means two things to the common Tao one, food, because that's the source of fish, especially for Metro Manila, source of livelihood for our fishermen. And second, because of electricity. Malampay supplies 40% of the energy requirement of Luzon, and it's running out of gas. And by next year, probably Malampay will supply only one gas-fired plant instead of supplying three gas-fired plants as before. So we have to import LNG, and the cost of energy will go up. So it's very easy to put this together. I mean, uh, West Philippine Sea is the source of food, the source of power, and it affects everybody. And uh, if electricity rates go up, everything goes up. There will be inflation will double or triple. So it's very easy to connect that, and I think it's starting to gain traction. We tried to connect it last elections. People start to understand now, but iba yung it's coming from the administration, because last time it came from the opposition. But now the administration can say it also. So both the Marcos administration and the true opposition, although they've been decimated, would be saying the same thing, and that will hit Duterte's group. So I think that should be the track. It can be connected, and there's every justification to connect it.
Yeah, I mean, again, Justice, I mean, ako, this would be like unsolicited advice, although I don't want to advise this administration per se, but parang, for heaven's sake, Marcos could say every problem we have right now, in one way or another, legacy ni Digong yon. One reason, for instance, we cannot provide massive subsidies to Filipinos is because sa daming utang natin nung panahon ni Digong, sa sobrang kapalpakan ni Digong. I mean, on the economic front, di ba? Ang laki nung utang natin from the Duterte era. He shrunk our fiscal space and therefore limited the ability of the government to help yung mga pinakamahirap na Pinoy. Of course, we can say na yung West Philippine Sea, the reason hindi natin na-develop yung reed bank is because pinipilit ni Digong na joint development, which essentially would be giving up our sovereign rights in the West Philippine Sea. And in the end, hindi rin masikmura ni Teddy Boy Locsin, di ba? He said, I'm not gonna sign a joint development. So, these are all Duterte's fault. And weirdly, Marcos is taking the punches when in fact he could, he could make sure na he's not the one taking punches and put the blame on Duterte. Like, what else is he waiting? Because he's taking the punches right now by not pointing out na he's paying the price for the failures and the legacy of his predecessor.
Yes, well, that issue will come out if Duterte or one of the Duterte children will run for the Senate. But if none of the Dutertes will run for the Senate, then nobody is there as a target. That's the other thing. So it would be good if one of the Dutertes will run for the Senate, because there will be a target to bring up these issues. But I have to caution also the administration, because it could also be they could fall into a very serious situation that's very detrimental to their position. And I'm talking about the Philhealth funds, because they're transferring from
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Philhealth about
Yep.
89.9 billion. And this is a trust fund. It belongs to the Filipino people to be used for their medicine. And they're transferring this to the unprogrammed funds to fund the pork barrel, the projects of the congressman. That will be terrible, because that's easy to explain to the people. It's legally unconstitutional, and I can show it's unconstitutional. And I hope they will stop it. I hope they will stop it, because that will be a terrible backlash. And whatever they throw at the opposition, this is 10 to 20 times more, because this is really health of the people. And this is medicine for everybody. And you are taking away 90 billion. Where are you putting it? You're putting it for the projects of the congressman. And that means that's a pork barrel, of course. So uh, I hope they realize that this is a real problem for them. They have to stop this because
Pag-usap,
it's really unconstitutional. It's very clearly unconstitutional. It's illegal. It's malversation because they're using trust fund for a different purpose. That's malversation. It's criminal. I hope they will stop it. I don't want to because Duterte will use this against them, and this is a
everyone will use
very
it against
powerful.
them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very powerful issue against the administration, and the money cannot be transferred without the approval of the president, and the president will have to bear responsibility.
He
This
will
is really, I
Mhm.
hope they realize the consequences and stop this foolishness.
Thank you for raising that, Justice, because baka mamaya ma-accuse tayo na, ba't ang bait-bait nyo kay BBM? But like, yeah, this is a serious issue. And with the elections coming up very soon, I think people can do the 2+2, right? And figure out what's going on here. I mean, can we talk about the constitutionality part? We had the DAP, the DAP situation during Aquino, right? You were part of the Supreme Court back then, di ba, Justice?
Yeah.
And I remember very well how disappointed I was when, well, God bless his soul, but Pinoy came out and even criticized you guys in Supreme Court. And the justification back then of Butch Abad and all was they wanted to just make sure there's an acceleration of spending kasi marami daw underspending. But they circumvented the power of the purse of the Congress, right? So essentially they usurped constitutional powers there. And of course, you open a can of worms once you usurp such prerogatives and do, like reprogramming or rechanneling. So can we go back to that? Because you were part of the Supreme Court that ruled against
Yeah.
Aquino administration. So I'm sorry,
Well,
for fools who want to say this is a partisan issue, it is not. It's a constitutional issue. Could you remind everyone, Justice, of that?
yes, because under the Constitution, the president has the power to transfer savings from one department, from one executive office to another. So what they're doing now is they're saying that the Philhealth funds are savings, but it cannot be savings because we have not enrolled the entire Filipino people, because the PhilHealth is a universal health fund. It's for 110 million people, but not maybe 20% are enrolled. So you have not fully used this amount. It cannot be savings. It can be savings if you have fully enrolled everybody and you can provide medicine for everybody and you still have excess funds. But that's not the case. So these are not savings, definitely not savings. So but they're still transferring it. So illegal na yon. The president cannot transfer from one item to another that which are not savings. So and where does he transfer it? He transfers it to the DPWH because this is where they lodge the projects of the congressman. And it's only the president who has that power to transfer. Although they
Yeah,
ask the Secretary of Finance to issue the directive, but I'm sure the Secretary of Finance had a memorandum from the president
right.
to instruct him to do it, because
So wala
I
kang
don't
fall
think
guy
Recto
dyan.
will do it without a directive
Yeah,
from the president. So they're
exactly.
trying to shield the president, but that will not work. Everybody knows it has to come from the president. So you see that's a big problem, and you're talking here of the voters.
Right.
The voters who need medicine and they don't get medicine right now. And you are saying that you have 90 billion savings, but yet there are people who don't get medicine. You have probably enrolled not more than 25% of the population.
It's
So
far
there's a
from
long, long
universal.
way to go.
Yeah, it's far from universal. And the DOH was a mess during pandemic. They're still in the situation of the Farmali. Yeah, I mean, this is pouring gasoline on
This is,
fire.
if
Yeah.
Farmally, this is 10 times, 20 times worse than Farmally. Because Farmally, how much was that? Uh, uh,
Billions
12
of pesos
billion,
lang. Oh, yeah.
about 12 billion. This is 90 billion.
Yeah. This is like 6 times, 7 times more. Well, I think the Department of Finance Secretary being a ex-politician and congressman and all might not also help, right? Like, had we had technocratic persons and some sort of plausible deniability, Marcos could have got around it. But he's gonna take the punches for this, and if he doesn't do the right thing, deservingly so, he's gonna take punches for this. You're absolutely right. This will be, kumbaga, ulam yan sa mga Dutertes, di ba? To pin
Yeah,
down.
the Duterte
Ulam
can
talaga
really,
yan. Yeah.
yeah, and they will be defending the masa. I mean, they will claim to be the protector of the masa here.
Yeah, Mr. Formal.
This is terrible. This is going to be a debacle for the administration. But I don't want the administration to be transferring these funds. This belong to the Filipino people.
Yeah, it's wrong. And at the same time, it's politically suicidal, if ever. No, if they really,
Yes.
it's
So
wrong. Yeah.
I hope they stop it.
So this could be the big issue in the elections, corruption, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this could overshadow all the other issues. This could
absolutely.
overshadow the POGO, is overshadow the West Philippine Sea. Very easy for all the other issues to be overshadowed.
Ma-crowd out. And then ma-weaponize ito.
Yeah.
Weaponize
It
ito
is,
ng people who have no right weaponizing
yeah,
this.
because if you do this, you are really heartless. I mean, you are really heartless if you deprive the massa of medicine that they need.
And of course, all of this, while we're still debating what on earth is this Maharlika Fund all about, right? Na ang taas-taas ng sahod nung boss ng Maharlika Fund, Sarap Buhay, di ba? We'll talk about Sarap Buhay in different ways later on. But I mean, look at it. Marcos Jr. announced that he has, 5,500 new flood control projects and all of that. And the next thing you know, I'm not sure how many flood projects really worked. So I think that reminded people also of corruption, right? I mean, I think a lot of people would say, wait, chine-check ba natin talaga itong mga flood control project or project-projectan lang yan, di ba? I mean, he kind of looked like a fool, no offense to him, but it didn't give him a good look, because just a few days later on, massive flooding. Although I don't think the rain was as bad as Undoy time, but I'm just, so Marcos can be pinned down for not only incompetence and lack of assertiveness, but also not cleaning up things when medyo lantaran. What is your read on this, Justice? Na
Yeah,
pwede magkumpul-kumpul yan, di ba? Delikado
yeah,
siya.
very unfortunate that he was so stressed that there were over 5,000 flood control projects, and a few days later, the country was flooded. Yeah, we were flooded, and it's worse than Ondoy now. So, I mean, that means that all these 5,000 projects are all fake. I mean, you can say that because how could we have this kind of flooding now?
Not in BGC, which has a very good modern system, right? I mean, you saw all these videos from BGC.
But BGC is private.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Nakita mo dun sa maayos na area, walang flooding. So that means if you have a nice urban planning and all, walang flooding na mangyayari, di ba? I mean, you're right, Justice. I mean, this could snowball into something very dangerous in next year's elections and really energize the other side. Now, speaking of the other side, I don't know if BBM still wants to insist there's a unity team, but it's quite interesting that Sara Duterte, on the very day na may bagyo, and all of that, she decides to just go abroad. And some people are saying, oh, why Munich? And then some, oh, my concerts is Swifty or whatever. They're connecting the dots. And for all the criticism you can make of BBM, rightly or wrongly, it's not like yung kabila also is being led in the most optimal way. I mean, ganun ba si Sara talaga? I mean, some would call her bratty, some would call her insensitive, but at the same time, Sara Duterte is still the most popular Filipino politician based on the Pulse Asia survey. She has more than 70% approval rating against BBM, who's just over 50%. What is your read of this whole situation?
Well, the survey was before the Karina flood, and before that incident where she left on the day of the storm, typhoon. But I think it was, well, we have to accept that she planned it, and nobody knew that the Karina would strike us. No, so it was just a coincidence. I don't think that she intended to run away during the flood. The storm happened, but those are the unfortunate events that happen to you in politics. I mean, those are unforeseen circumstances that just strike you. And some people would say, I know that several presidents traveled abroad when there was a crisis at home, and they came back immediately. They were attending a meeting, a
Yes,
conference
and this
abroad,
is
and
not
they
even an
took back.
essential visit. Last time I checked, and well, I don't know, Justice, because I had arrived just the night before from Europe, and the rain was already bad, and there were already some forecasting about how things could go crazy. Kaya actually, maaga ako pumunta sa airport the next day ng 4 a.m. Even though I could have gone, but I still missed my flight, obviously, because the crazy rain. So I don't know. Some people would question yung excuse. They could say you could have rebooked. I mean, you know that things could go crazy, especially if this is a non-essential visit. I don't know what on earth she was doing in Munich. Obviously not the Munich Security Conference because that's around February, which I attended in the past. So this didn't seem to be a very serious one. So I just felt kasi Lenny Robredo, the ex-VP, coming out very strongly and saying Angat Buhay is very much, gonna help and volunteers are there, etc. That I think kind of may sting siya eh. Galit na galit yung mga pro-Sara people na they were attacking Lenny na back in the day daw nasa New York nung may ganyan-ganyan bagyo sa... But that was a completely different situation because she was already in New York few days into that crisis. But this is different. Uh, so essentially you had this whole Angat Buhay versus Sarap Buhay attacks, di ba?
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that maybe it's unfair na talagang maybe
Yeah,
she genuinely didn't know it's gonna be that bad.
yeah, there was no really intention, but it happens. In politics, you fly abroad and something catastrophic happens back at home, and you have to fly back to show to the people you're concerned. And that was her mistake. She did not fly back. You have to really drop everything and fly back. Her mistake was not to leave. Her mistake was that she did not fly back.
Although may sinabi silang may statement sila na something like parang she only had travel authority charot-charot so she couldn't come. Parang I don't even know how to regurgitate the argument. It's just so ridiculous na parang ano ba parang yun lang daw yung travel authority niya na hindi siya makaano like I don't know. She could have at least live stream and say, guys, hi guys, I'm here. Don't worry, we're coordinating. Hindi, wala eh. Next thing we know, biglang lumitaw sa Munich, tapos may meeting, busy daw. Parang busy doing what? Diba?
Well, those are the events that happen in your political career, and sometimes you just make a mistake. I mean, you make the wrong call, and you will lose voters, you lose votes. You try to recover, but it's also the timing. It can happen near the election, and there's no time to recover. So I think she made a bad call in not coming back immediately.
I want to ask you this, Justice, because, again, sorry, putting on, but you're from Davao, so a part of me is still skeptical that her numbers will significantly go down after this or any, parang feeling ko sobrang solid na yung base niya eh. Because if you look at her numbers in Mindanao, it's almost 100%, 95. Her numbers in Visayas is around 80 plus percent. It looks like the Vismin vote is just so crystallized that almost regardless of what Sara does, the Dutertes will have a national say. They will be a force to reckon with, right? I mean, or am I overestimating them? I just always, like many people were saying, ito na, pababa na yung numbers na. And then umakyat siya ulit. And then I just think we have to accept the Dutertes really have a solid base na halos hindi mawawala yan. Yung solid South na yan, mahirap mawawalan yan. Kaya nga walang room for mistake masyado si BBM or yung mga kalaban nila eh. And hindi ka pwede umasa sa mga mistakes nila to bring them. I mean, you tell me, Justice, because for me, the biggest question is actually, how come the Dutertes became the dominant force in Davao? Of all people from Davao, including great guys like you and many people I know from Davao, na extremely different. I mean, Nograles, for all their imperfections, it's night and day. You look at the credentials, walang brat sa kanila, they're all best educated schools, matinong kausap. How come Duterte came to dominate Davao? And now, how come they're so solid in terms of their base of support? What's the explanation to you? I wrote a whole book.
There is only one reason for their strong base: confidential funds. Because the President Duterte invented that. When Sara left office as mayor, her confidential fund was about 450 billion
Sarap,
pesos
sarap
a
buhay
year.
talaga, sarap buhay.
Yeah. Confidential funds means that she can do what she wants in 11 days. She can spend everything just saying, I hereby certify.
But
So,
Justice, she cannot rebook. She cannot rebook her flight, but she can spend in 11 days. Like, yun lang, hindi
so,
ko ang galing gumastos, pero hindi makarebook, di ba?
so with that, you can employ all the barangay chairs, the children of barangay chair, the spouses of the barangay chair will all be in, you can employ them as your casual. So you will never lose in a barangay.
Very
All the
liquid.
kagawads are in the payroll, their wives, their children, and that's the secret. That's why when she became vice president, she wanted her own confidential fund. Rennie didn't have a confidential fund. So they see the confidential fund as the strength,
The lifeblood
their
of the
pillar.
Philippines.
So
Yeah,
if you remove that, they will run amok. And when the Congress remove it, that's exactly what she did. So it's because of the confidential fund. And unfortunately, the other cities are trying to emulate Davao. Makati, the mayor has about 60 to 80 million already, and Quezon City, they have
sarap
also
buhay, sarap
confidential
buhay.
funds of 60 to 80 million. And and can you just imagine if all the mayors will have a confidential fund? They can never be defeated. That is worse than political dynasties. I mean,
Mhm.
that is why my group filed that case in the Supreme Court because
A confidential fund ni
unless,
Sarah.
yeah, unless this is stopped, we're in deep shit here. It's really,
It's the first time I hear you using but you're right, Justice. I mean, this is the lifeblood of Trapoismo, di ba?
yeah. So if this happens, if because how will how is the budget of the city approved? The budget of the municipality approved? It's the council, city council that will approve it. So if the city council will give you 500 million pesos in confidential fund, you'll be happy to give each of the councilor who voted for it 25 million. So it's really the biggest scam now. This is worse than the
Mhm. Enough?
well, if Congress has its pork barrel, the mayors have their confidential funds. So where will the citizens go? What will happen to this country?
It's interesting, Justice, na medyo matagal na tong issue ng confidential fund if you look at the history of it, pero parang last year lang siya sumikat.
Because you
Yun nga
know
eh. Yeah, kasi
because
lantaran na.
before Duterte, no mayor dared to have a confidential fund. It was started in Davao.
Davao talagang innovation hub ng ganito mga fiscal.
And the the fatal defect of this confidential fund is, uh, of course, they will say that I hereby certify that this was spent for this purpose. Period. That's how you liquidate it.
Pero ekbang mo yan, ekbangan mo lang. Oh.
Yeah. So, uh, but that is against the Constitution. The Constitution says the people have a right to know, right to information on matters of public concern, especially the disbursement of public funds, unless there is a law providing for reasonable limitations on the right of the people to information. There is no such law. And that's why we are saying all of these confidential funds are unconstitutional because you must fully disclose how you spent the money. You cannot say, I hereby certify that I spent this for a confidential purpose. That cannot be because there is no law. The Constitution says the rule is full disclosure of disbursement of public funds, exception when Congress provides for a reasonable limitation. There is
Intelligence.
no law providing for reasonable limitation. And that's why we are in the Supreme Court. We're saying to the court, you have to declare all of these confidential funds unconstitutional. There is no law. And
So
our
yeah.
problem is other cities are copying this. Makati, Quezon City, and I think some other cities. So it has to be stopped. In the same way that the Supreme Court stopped the pork barrel. Of course, they develop a, a, how to circumvent it. So
Mm.
I mean, the people will have to be vigilant on this because what will happen to the country?
I mean, I always was wondering if the reason for the popularity is ganyan, yun pala it's ganyan. ibang direction ba? Akala ko ganon. Ganon pala.
So you were asking me, how come they're so popular? They can never lose an election because they have the
Yeah.
confidential funds.
Sarap
That's
buhay
the
eh.
source of their
Yeah.
political power. So that's not in the political books, Richard. What is the source of the political power? It's the confidential fund.
So it's fiscal impunity. In a way, you could call it fiscal impunity, right? Because you
Yeah.
have all of these resources, but there's an impunity around how much accountable and transparent you're going to be around it, diba? So it's a form of impunity. It's a financial fiscal impunity, the way I see it. And I'm shocked yung nga, like I think we discussed a lot about pork barrel and PDAF and development fund, whatever. But you're absolutely right. The confidential fund is quite an interesting innovation that went on steroids during Digong administration. Uh, but Pinoy had also confidential fund, diba, when he was the president. But this is intelligence fund, right?
Intelligence fund. It's
Yeah,
okay. If
intelligence.
it's intelligence fund, that's
Kasi
really
kailangan mo
military.
talaga, papatayin ka
Yeah.
eh. Exactly.
Military, yeah. That's for military purpose. But confidential fund is not for military purpose.
Well, unless you're well, speaking of military purpose, eto na, si Sarah, I don't know from live ba to from Munich or whatever, may letter siya bigla kagabi na parang first name basis pa yata, inaaway itong PNP chief dun sa disarming ng kanyang battalion. Ay, sorry, disarming ng kanyang ng guards and all of that. Wait,
The recall. The
at
recall.
yeah, recall, it's like, disarm, sorry, nasa Rore pa rin na yung utak ko eh. Parang Team China talaga. No, Justice, I mean, why would a vice president have hundreds of security personnel to begin with, and now I don't know, it's down by another 75 or 150? Like, so it's not just confidential funds; it's also these huge battalions of what's going on here?
Well, I think let's go back to the other vice presidents. How many security personnel they had, and that should be the benchmark. I think
Lenny, wala pang 100 yung kay Lenny, di ba? Parang,
yeah, and that's only the PNP side. There's still the AFP. That's composite.
so, but the tone of the vice president, the way she's talking to the PNP chief is like parang utusan lang niya yan, di ba? I mean, like, is it a Duterte thing talaga na taklesa, to put it nicely? I mean, I heard other terms I rather not use on the record. I mean, ganun ba talaga sila, Justice? Like, they just, ganyan lang nila yung mga opisyales and all?
Well, because that's what happens when you are in power for over 30 years.
It's that kind of,
Become entitled.
yeah, bratty. I mean, some would say bratty, really, to be honest about this. The last point, Justice, so next elections will be team confidential funds versus team on program funds. I mean, like, this
That's
is
it.
bad. This
Yes,
is really
because
bad.
that is the retort of the administration, confidential fund. This is team confidential fund versus
Exactly.
team
Pag-ibig fund. I mean, pag-ibig fund.
team Philhealth fund.
Philhealth fund, sorry. Baka mama, di ba, I mean, like, this is bad. Like, magmamudslinging sila in next elections. Naku, mahabang usapan to, di ba? Bakit? Ikaw nga ganyan. Hindi, bakit? Ikaw nga ganyan.
But that's really that will really fuel the next election. The confidential, the PhilHealth funds is, if they succeed in getting that 90 billion, that is what's gonna fuel the elections. And of course, the
50 billion lang
confidential
tayo.
fund that has been accumulated by the other side.
That's you don't want, that's gonna be nasty elections if it goes back. Palakihan ng sarap buhay, di ba? Sarap buhay versus golden era buhay, di ba? Wow, this is yun nga, actually, di ba ang concern natin, Justice, aside from obviously we don't want corruption and bad governance, our worry is that talagang malasanya yung mga ibang importanteng issue, di ba? The West Philippine Sea, POGO, mga ganun. Kasi very visceral ito, di ba? Sa taong bayan. Corruption is something that resonates with Filipino people easier than any other political issue because it's just so morally straightforwardly wrong, di ba? Unlike yung other issues na medyo technical, you can debate about tactics and foreign policy or economic issues for that matter.
Yeah, these are gut issues, really. Medicine is a gut issue. And I think in the battle of confidential funds versus Philhealth funds will lose
Yeah,
because it's closer to the gut. It's a gut issue.
I mean, health, the gut is part of your body and the
Yeah.
cover, yeah. We just invented a new framing for the elections, diba? It went from Team Philippines versus Team China ngayon, Team Fund 1 versus Fund 2, diba? This is crazy. I mean, kawawa talaga ang Pilipinas kung hindi natin ayusin yan. So, on a more cautiously optimistic note, you think BBM is in a position to correct this mistake? Let's be honest. Kasi nabuking na eh. I mean, the buck passes from him. Wala siyang plausible deniability. Wala siyang sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
Dito.
This is as clear as the POGO. It's illegal. I mean, the transfer of the funds from Philhealth to the unprogrammed funds. There's a group of UP professors. They're going to the Supreme Court soon, no? Sila Cielo Magno. So, it's, whatever is the result in the Supreme Court, it will be bad because the people will say, bakit tinanggal lang kami ng medicine? It will be bad.
And the Supreme Court doesn't have confidential funds. Like, that's the problem. Like, wait lang. Sino pa bang may confidential fund, diba? Yun ang problem. It's like everyone is invested in a certain status quo.
Yeah, what the Supreme Court can release the decision of both cases at the same time if it wants to. They have enough time. It kills everybody.
That was no usapan. That's it.
The Supreme Court will be up there if it does that. It slays the two evils.
Exactly. With one, like isang one dragon slay. I mean, just to end on this note, I mean, I don't know what is the norm around an ex-justice commenting on matters of Supreme Court. Are you cautiously optimistic that they will do the right thing at the right time also? Because timing is an issue too.
That is my prayer every night.
Yeah, because Justice, I'll be honest, things didn't look very good in the past. I mean, I can go case by case, and I know a lot of times you were just outnumbered, to put it brutally honestly. But overall, the institution of the Supreme Court, I don't think has had its most golden era over the past decade or so. Again, no offense to you, Justice, or other members. It's just honestly from the outside. Do you think this could be its redemptive moment?
Well, when it comes to the Supreme Court, I will have to be cautiously optimistic, but still optimistic, because I think they will see the consequences of this, the historical consequences of this. They have to decide it right.
Thank you so much, Justice. I really appreciated this discussion. I thought papunta na naman tayo ng Kiboloy and all of that, but no, this is really serious, right? This team confidential fund versus
this is really we're talking here about national. This is the greatest threat to our democracy. These two issues here, the confidential funds and this Philhealth funds being transferred.
Essentially, fiscal impunity. I would put it that way. That's the term I'm going to use for it. Thank you so much, Justice. I appreciate it. I think this is also a good reminder to the people that for all the praise we make of Marcos on West Philippine Sea for good reasons because he's doing the right thing, for all of the entertainment we're having at the expense of Duterte's, at the end of the day, our convictions are very clear. We want good governance. We want modern 21st century governance. We want rule of law. And I think this conversation was a stark reminder, especially to some fools out there who have been saying, oh, Richard, bakit ang bait nyo ngayon kay BBM? And, only on West Philippine Sea issue. We're still holding the line on all other important issues, especially in domestic affairs. So thank you
Yes.
so much, Justice, for also reminding everyone that, we are watching very carefully. It's eyes wide open. We're looking at everything here, including
Yeah,
also the fiscal issues.
we have we have our direction still following a straight line. Thank you, Richard. Thank you to our viewers.
Thank you. Mabuhay po kayo, Justice, and hope we can get back to you in a week or so. Hopefully, my good news by that time. You're absolutely. I was actually a bit worried about it because everyone is tagging me on this issue, and I sabi ko wait lang. Pag-aralan ko pa to. Ayaw ko magmaganda dito. But after this conversation, I think I'm much more confident about where I stand on this. I was worried about this, but I think after this conversation, it affirmed na this could get very ugly. Kaya nga sabi ko, this could be labanan ito ng kung sino mas malaki ng font na questionable. And that will be an ugly elections. It will reflect
Yes.
very badly on the country, honestly. And one reason we don't have all of these investors is because they look at us as a banana republic. So for all of the good things Marcos has been doing, ang laki din pa rin itong issue ng accountability and corruption. That I hope the president will do right. There's still time, di ba, Justice?
Yes, there's still
Realistically,
time.
until when dapat niya ayusin na to? And should some heads roll na to begin with this mumbo jumbo business has been happening? Should someone
Well, if he stops it, I think
good enough?
because this will not happen without his clearance.
Signature will be there. So talagang wala.
Yeah.
Buck will pass, will stop with him. Thank you very much and God bless and mabuhay po kayo. Hopefully, good news next time. Sige, Justice,
Yes.
magsulat ka rin ng open letter. Meron ba kayong open letter on this issue to Marcos?
Wala pa, but
I think we should.
maybe we will do an open letter again.
Yeah. Mukhang gumagana kasi gumagana sa POGO. Malay na. Every time, wala kaming tubig dito, i-open letter natin si BBM. Wala kaming traffic dito, maki-open letter. Baka maging Karen na tayo. No, on that note, thank you so much, Justice. Mabuhay po kayo
Okay.
and have a good night. Salamat.